Let's find out where the Orioles are right now. We bring in Mike Elias, their executive vice president and general manager. Mike, it's Brian Kenny. Good to speak to you again.
Hey, Brian, good to be here. Thank you.
Mike, you tell us, what was the effect, again, when you're in a rebuild and you're coming up from the minor leagues and there's basically no minor leagues? What was the effect of the pandemic on your rebuild?
Yeah, it was a very chaotic season for everyone. I think every team was impacted negatively, but every team was impacted differently. You know, the teams that were in a big part of their competitive cycle, really going for it, you know, missed out on a good portion of the season, had a lot of challenges with health and pitcher health throughout the season. For us, the biggest impact was the lack of the minor league season, the shortened draft, the delayed international signing period, these areas that are big areas of emphasis right now for the Orioles. To have those pulled out from underneath us was very unexpected and you know, had an impact on what we're trying to do. But, you know, we made the most of it, had a really good experience at our alternate site this summer and, you know, followed it up with an instructional league. And, you know, we're plugging away like everyone, but it was a tough year.
Yeah, I mean, and you don't have the year of development. You don't have the data. There's even the process data, right? Like, how much of that is where we have a black hole of experience and development here?
Yeah, it's going to be really weird. I mean, we're just so used to having these baseball statistics year in and year out in the minor leagues, in the major leagues, in college, in the Cape Cod League. All of that is vanquished for 2020. It's going to be different for 2021. Teams changing schedules, ballparks, even if they get a pretty good size season off. So going to be a challenge for our scouts in particular, for our analytics department in particular. I think every team is trying to figure out the best way to tackle it. It's just one of those things in baseball history, but obviously it will continue to be something that we wrangle with for years to come this year.
Mike, one thing about your major league club last year is you had some surprising performance. You know, you had guys who were just, you know, had these fantastic offensive numbers, and a number of them. Ryan Mountcastle was one of them, but even Jose Iglesias, who was playing for you last year. Is there any explanation to why you got a lot of good, I don't want to call it overperformance, but kind of maximized performance?
Yeah, it was good to see from our perspective, and I think for a young team like ours that is building towards contention, it's going to be priceless for us to have been in a little bit of a playoff race in 2020 in that shortened season. Our guys had a lot of fun. There was some tense games right up to the last couple of weeks of the season. I credit our coaching staff and our training and medical staff for doing a good job with the health and safety protocols, keeping players healthy, keeping the right environment. And we had some guys have really nice years. Like you mentioned, it was a tough year. It started off with us getting the Trey Mancini cancer diagnosis, and then we had the shutdown a few days later, but our guys kept working at home. They came back. And in particular, you mentioned Ryan Mountcastle, but also Dean Kramer and Keegan Aiken, two guys who we have high hopes for in our starting rotation, had successful major league debuts in 2020. And that's what we want to see here as you know, we have our eyeballs on these homegrown guys coming up from the minors to start to, you know, put together a core, and to have a couple success stories from 2020 was encouraging for us.
Mike, how much emphasis do you put on maximizing on-field performance? I know when you were there with the Astros, you guys did a great job there, and it's the whole wave of things now. How much emphasis or resources do you put to let's really maximize the guys that are playing on the field right now? Not, you know, you're always going to have your development, but how much can you push toward, no, the guys who are playing right now, let's try to get them better?
Yeah, it grows every year, the amount of resources that we devote towards player performance, player health, and it's because the science and technology in those areas are expanding across sports. There's so much more available to sports teams, and you know, the players are exposed to this at their colleges or in the private sector, or through their respective agencies, and so their expectations and their demands from the teams that they play for grows and grows every year, and rightfully so. And so now you've got all 30 major league teams trying to stay at the forefront of this area of player performance, and it's really changed rapidly in the last 5 years. So it's important to us, it's important to everybody, and it's been an area of expansion here with the Orioles in the last few years.
Yeah, it springs to mind. Now, there's Felix Hernandez. He comes in, and I remember when the Mariners had a lot of, you know, new things to be looking at, Felix wasn't quite the most receptive. He'd been a successful pitcher. So now Felix comes to you for maybe the last chance. How do your baseball ops people or coaching staff approach him in saying, hey, let's work together on this?
I think we have a real good system for looking at pitch data. It's the way we do it. It's easy to look at. It's easy for the coaches to use. It's easy for the players to understand. And we have a track record of success that we can point to prior with the Houston Astros, as you mentioned, but then also the last couple of years with the Orioles, particularly on the minor league side in 2019, had a real blossoming of pitcher performance in the minor leagues. Everybody's strikeout rate went up. We set franchise records for wins and strikeouts with our pitching staffs across the minors. Obviously, we got canceled last year in the minor leagues, so we didn't have a chance to repeat. But, you know, the guys are buying in because they saw it helped them in 2019 and 2020. And so when we have pitchers here like Felix Hernandez or Matt Harvey that are looking to resuscitate their careers, they're in here in camp, they're trying to make the team. I think they're attracted to and receptive towards what's being shown to them.
Mike, we were just talking about the book Thinking Fast and Slow. Joe Lemire quoted Sig Maydal, who works for you, of course. And so we were talking about executives who have in baseball who've read this book. Have you read this book?
Yeah, I think everyone has. It's been very popular in baseball and other businesses since it came out.
Well, again, you and Sig are looking at your own biases and, hey, how your decision making is at the forefront. But what did you find that, what do you learn from that? Like, again, to go deeper into your own processes, because you're working on it all the time. But tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, it's fun. I've been working with Sig for like 15 years now across 3 different organizations. And he's always someone to challenge the way we think, the way we approach things, try to ground our processes in objectivity and science and predictive data. And that makes for a fun blend when you're dealing with baseball players and you're dealing with human beings and you're dealing with what can be a subjective matter in player evaluation. And so I come from a traditional scouting background, and those of us that follow baseball know that far from everything can be quantified or predicted. But we must blend that with, things that history teaches us about the game and what some of the newer technologies and modalities can reveal in an objective way. And so this book kind of balances those topics and describes how it's used in the field of psychology and other areas of business. And it's been something that's been fun for baseball people to read.
All right. Outstanding. Mike Elias, again, Executive VP GM of the Orioles. Mike, always good catching up with you, and best of luck this year. We'll talk again.
Thank you.